So I can feel it. I can sense it. Summertime's almost here. And I love running in the summer. I love doing long runs in the summer. But the summertime can be a risk for long runs because of the heat, humidity, and so forth. So I've got some tips I want to share with you today so you can have a very successful and safe long run season this summer. Hi, I'm Ralph, and welcome to Ageless Runner. So before I jump into a bunch of tips here, I want to talk a little bit of science. I want you to understand how our body manages heat, how it transfers heat from our body to the outside to keep us cool when we're running. Because once you understand these three basic principles, then all these tips will not only make sense, but you'll understand them intuitively and you'll kind of know what's the right thing to do in a given situation. Now, when I was in engineering school, I took a heat transfer class and they taught us three methods of heat transfer. Heat transfer is conducting heat. For example, it's when you bake something and heat something on your stove, you want to conduct the heat into the pan. And the three methods are conduction, convection, and radiation. Radiation is pretty straightforward. That's what you feel when you step out in the sun. The sun shines on you, it feels warm on your face. It's a real helpful thing in the wintertime to help warm you up. But in the summertime, radiation heating is our enemy because it's just heating us up. It just makes it harder for us to dissipate the body temperature. The second method of heat transfer is conduction. Conduction is transferring heat through a solid object. For example, when we heat up our pan on the stove, it's trying to conduct the heat through the metal fan from the stove through the pan to our food. In the body, our bodies have a core temperature of roughly 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees centigrade. When we run, that core temperature wants to go up. So our body needs to dissipate that heat because if it gets too hot, well, that's when we get heat stroke, heat exhaustion. And so it's conducting the heat through the solid of our body, through our organs, through our muscles, through our blood, and so forth, and getting that to our skin. And then if we have clothes on, we now need to conduct that heat through the clothes. So a great example of this is wintertime, and you decide to do an experiment. You put on only your running shorts, you step outside, where you have and when you do that, you're going to feel cold because you have a very low air temperature on your skin compared to your body temperature. Is a big difference there. So the heat's going to travel very rapidly from your internal core to your body to the outside air because of that big temperature difference. But you run inside and you put some clothes on and you go back out. Now you feel comfortable because now those clothes, we have to conduct the heat through those clothes now, and those clothes are an insulator. On the other end, in the summertime, I step outside in just my shorts. Depending on the temperature, I might feel good because the temperature difference between the outside air and my core temperature is much smaller, so I don't lose heat quite as rapidly. So I may be able to stand out there in just my running shorts. But if I were to go inside and put a bunch of clothes on, now I'm going to get hot because the clothes are acting again as an insulator. So conduction affects us that way about trying to get our internal core temperature, getting that heat to the outside air so we can dissipate it and stay cool. The third method is convective heat loss, and convection happens from fluid flow. Fluid would be like in your car, your internal combustion engine. You have a coolant flowing around in there, and that coolant helps transfer the heat, get rid of the heat from the hot engine parts. And our bodies, that convective cooling is called sweating. We sweat, it evaporates, and that cools our body. In fact, in the summertime, that's the main way you're going to get cold. You're not going to get very little cooling from conduction because the outside air temperature is very close to your body temperature. And you don't get anything from radiation. Radiation just makes it worse. So convection is really the most important thing we need to be concerned about in the summertime. Now, we're going to talk a little more about, focus on convection when we talk about heat index in just a minute or two. But let's talk about a few general tips. So tip number one is to run early morning or late afternoon. Why is that? Two reasons. One is temperatures are a little lower. So again, the lower the temperature is against our skin, the better we'll conduct heat away from our body because we got that larger temperature difference. And the other reason it helps is typically the UV index, the radiation heating from the sun, is less in early mornings and late afternoon. So we get two benefits from in that time period. And tip number two then, kind of relatedly with our clothes, and that is to wear light-colored, moisture-wicking, loose-fitting clothes. I kind of combined a bunch of things there. But light color clothes helps with radiation, absorbing the radiation from the sun. We all know a black car will heat up more than a white car. So if we wear light colored clothing, the radiation won't heat up our body as much as we're wearing, say, a black running shirt. And by wearing moisture-wicking clothes, again, we need to get that moisture away from our skin and get it out to the outside air because our clothes are acting as an insulator. So if we get that moisture away from our skin to the outside air, it can evaporate and cool our bodies. And if it's loose-fitting, then we're not trapping any moisture in our skin, and we're allowing air to flow around our skin, around our bodies to help cool us. So tip number three is, again, we're going to stick with the radiation thing for just a second. And that is leverage cloudy days and shady paths. If it's cloudy out, you have a little less UV radiation on your body. Should be a little cooler than if the bright sun shining on you. Same thing with a shady path. You have a shady route you can run on. It's going to be a little less radiative heating on you. So try and leverage those two possibilities. Now let's move in to real emphasis on convective heat loss. And this next tip, tip number four, may be the most important tip I'm going to give you today, and that is know the heat index. In the wintertime, we talk about wind chill, which is how cold our body feels when the wind's blowing and it's cold out. Heat index is a summertime equivalent. It's a feels like temperature. How hot does it feel? Only wind's not the added component, it's humidity. The more humid it is, it slows down the evaporative loss from our sweating. If it's high humidity and there's a lot of moisture in the air, our body sweat doesn't evaporate quite as quickly as if the air is dry. For example, if it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit outside and humidity 70%, that's a heat index of 93 degrees Fahrenheit. No, that's like running at 93 degrees Fahrenheit with very low humidity. Not a good thing. So know the heat index. And the heat index is between 80 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That's warm. You want to be careful. You want to take it easy. Don't push too hard. Just, watch what you're doing. Be aware of how your body's feeling and so forth. And if it's over 90 degrees, between 90 and 95, you really want to take it down a notch. Don't push too hard, and do some of these subsequent tips we're going to talk about. Really stress those. And if the heat index is over 95, I probably would suggest you don't run, at least not outside. Go inside and do something. Now, the way you can get the heat index, there's a lot of weather apps that do it. I read that WeatherBug does it. The little app I have on my phone for my backyard weather station gives me a feels like temperature. That's heat index. So get some source of heat index, be aware of it, know what it is before you go out and run, and be very careful of things that are around 90 degrees and higher. So the next tip related to heat index, to help with heat index, is do not be afraid to run on windy days. Windy days are your friend in the summertime. I know there's headwinds and things, that's a negative, but windy days can help keep you cool on a summer day. That accentuates the evaporation of the sweat. That's convective heat loss. In the wintertime, windy days are terrible. You try to avoid windy days because of the wind chill. But in the summertime, they can help keep you cool. So if you have the opportunity to run on a windy day, do it. It may help you be more successful with that long run. Now, because we need to make sure we get this evaporative cooling, this evaporative heat loss, it may be necessary, depending on the heat index, to take your effort down a little bit. In other words, you may want to slow down your pace. If you're doing run, walk, run, that may mean going to a lower ratio, maybe increasing your walk time, because it's like your body's an engine and it's heating up. And you got to give a chance to control that temperature. And by walking a little more, running a little slower, you give your body a chance to cool and control that core body temperature. So take it down a notch, especially as the heat index gets higher. Again, once you're approaching, upper 80 heat index, low 90s, you really need to be very careful and think about taking it down a notch. Now, next tip is to hydrate before, during, and after run, which as a runner you probably do anyway, but it's really important in the summertime. Drink 8 to 12 ounces of water an hour before you run. Drink regularly while you're running. I typically drink every 15 minutes, take 3 to 4 gulps from my water bladder. That's about 3 to 4 ounces every 15 minutes. You may need more or less. Again, the higher the heat index, you may need more moisture because you're sweating and you're losing body volume. As you lose the body moisture and you're not replenishing it, that's where heat exhaustion and heat stroke can come into play. And of course, when you're done, you need to, replenish your water, drink something after your run. And speaking of after your run, not only drinking, but you want to make sure you get some electrolytes. Again, you depleted some of the electrolytes, you sweat them off, you sweat off the salt, the calcium, potassium, and some of those things. So get some electrolytes, obviously get some carbohydrates and protein in you. Initiating that good recovery right away will help get you ready for the next run you want to do in a couple of days. So do a smart recovery, hydrate, electrolytes, protein, and carbohydrates. So again, as you run this summer, think about radiation, conduction, convection, how they're impacting you in your run. Manage them. I gave you some tips to do that so you can be successful in doing your long run. Long runs are more challenging because you're going to generate more heat. They take longer. You risk getting tired. You risk getting some heat-related illness. So be careful. So thank you again for being here, and I do appreciate you watching the video. And just remember, run smarter, go longer, and stay ageless. Thank you.